Hello, and welcome to this week's video, the Lee-Enfield rifle. Weapon is clear. As you just saw, I made sure the weapon is clear and is unloaded. Anytime you're handling firearms, firearm safety is very important. The Lee-Enfield is a bolt-action, repeating rifle chambered in the .303 British caliber cartridge. The .303 British caliber cartridge was made in both black powder and smokeless powder variants. The .303 British is a rimmed Spitzer round. I have some examples of the .303 British caliber round. This example here is a military style full metal jacket. This one here is a modern hunting cartridge. There's only a slight difference between the two. The difference being the modern hunting round has a semi-copper jacket with a lead tip, which allows it to expand upon impact of target. Whereas the full metal jacket, the projectile is encased in a full copper jacket, hence full metal jacket. As mentioned before, the .303 is a Spitzer round. Spitzer, meaning it has a necked piece where the cartridge and the projectile meet. You might be able to see that. I'll post some up close photos of the cartridges at the end of the video, and you can have a better look at them. The other feature of the Spitzer round is the projectile itself tapers towards the tip instead of having a rounded nose. The .303, like mentioned before, also is a rimmed cartridge. And as you can see, at the back there's a rim or a lip, and that's what they call a rimmed cartridge. The origin of the Lee-Enfield rifle is the United Kingdom, so England. It features a 10-round detachable magazine that is loaded by two 5-round stripper clips, which are also called chargers, or it can be loaded with individual rounds as well. So to remove the magazine on this rifle, there is a little tab. It'll be hard to see, but there's a little tab just forward of the trigger within the trigger guard. You push that in and pull, and the magazine comes out. To replace the magazine on this firearm, just line it up and push, and it clips in. The Lee-Enfield was the standard rifle of the British and Commonwealth forces for the first half of the 20th century. There's a long list of users of this rifle. Too many to list, actually, but some of them are the British forces, Commonwealth forces, including Canada, British colonial forces, several African nations, several Middle Eastern nations, countries in South America, the Caribbean, Asia, and some European nations in the post-war era. Post-war meaning after the Second World War. The rifle saw service in many conflicts and is a long-serving rifle. It was used from the Boer War, both World Wars, Korea, and the post-war era, until it was replaced in the late 50s, early 60s, when the British and Commonwealth forces went to the FN-FAL, which was chambered in the 7.62 by 51mm NATO cartridge. But some Lee-Enfields are still seen in service up till today, such as with the Bangladesh police, and until most recently here, like 2016 I think, with the Canadian Rangers. For those that don't know, the Canadian Rangers are a reserve unit within the Canadian Forces that patrol Canada's high Arctic. Also, there have been reports of Lee-Enfields being used in modern conflicts such as the conflict in Afghanistan. It is still quite popular with hunters and sport shooters. It is the second longest serving rifle after the Russian-made Mosin Nagant. There are over 17 million rifles of all types and variants of the Lee-Enfield made. The name Lee-Enfield is derived from the name of its bolt system designer, James Paris Lee, and the factory in which it was made, the Royal Small Arms Factory in Enfield, England. Hence, Lee-Enfield. Design and production of the rifle. It is basically a redesign of the Lee-Metford rifle that was used by the British in 1888. Lee-Enfield replaced the Martini-Henry, Martini-Enfield, and of course the Lee-Medford rifles. While it is derived from the Lee-Medford, which is a very similar rifle, the Lee-Medford was chambered in the .303 black powder cartridge, whereas this rifle is chambered in the smokeless cartridge. Originally, the idea of the detachable magazine on the rifle faced resistance, as some feared that the soldiers would lose the magazine. That's why some of the early models of the Lee-Enfield have a chain that attaches the magazine to the rifle, so that if it became detached, it would kind of just hang there and not get lost. It features a different bolt system than other bolt-action rifles of the day, and that of modern hunting rifles. Example of these rifles is the German-made Mauser rifle. The German-made Mauser rifle bolt system is the basis for all bolt systems on modern hunting rifles today. So the difference between the Lee-Enfield bolt system and the Mauser bolt system and that of modern hunting rifles is the Lee-Enfield is a cock-on-close bolt system, whereas the Mauser and modern hunting rifles are a cock-on-opening system. So I'll demonstrate that here, as you can see. See how when I close the bolt, you can see now the rifle is cocked, how that little bit sticks out there. Whereas if it was a Mauser or a modern hunting rifle, you wouldn't have that, because when you open the bolt, the rifle is now cocked and ready to fire as soon as the bolt closes and chambers the round. The cartridge, as stated before, it fires a .303 British caliber round, which is a rimmed Spitzer round, like we discussed earlier, and was first developed as a black powder cartridge in 1888, and then it was adapted to smokeless powder cartridges in the year of 1891. The .303 British caliber was the standard British and Commonwealth Forces round from 1889 to the 1950s. The cartridge is still produced today and is a very popular hunting round. The .303 cartridge has seen action in many conflicts and wars throughout history, just like the Lee-Enfield rifle. It's seen conflicts from the Boer War to modern conflicts here in Afghanistan even. It's a very popular round, very good round, well made. There have been many variants or types of the Lee-Enfield rifle made over the years. The first one was the magazine Lee-Enfield, which served from 1895 to 1926. Next came the Charger Loading Lee-Enfield 1906 to 1926. The short magazine Lee-Enfield Mark I served from 1904 to 1926. The short magazine Lee-Enfield Mark II served from 1906 to 1927. The short magazine Lee-Enfield Mark III, with and without the magazine cutoff, served from 1907 and can be still found in limited use here today. This rifle here is a short magazine Lee-Enfield Mark III without magazine cutoff. I'll get into that more later in the video here when I talk about this specific rifle. There were several experimental versions of the rifle developed in the early 20s. In 1931, the number 4 Mark I entered service, and some of these can still be found in service today in limited use. The number 5 Jungle Carbine entered service in 1944 and still today can be found in limited use. The number 4 Mark II started service in 1949 and again can still be found in limited use here today. There were several versions that were converted to 7.62 by 51 millimeter in the late 50s, early 60s there, and some of those can even still be found in service here today as well. There was also several sniper variants of the rifle made across all variants of the rifle, like different models like the Mark III, the number 4s. There are several special variants such as the Delisle Commando, which was a suppressed cut down Mark III receiver that was chambered in 45 ACP pistol cartridge and featured a Thompson submachine gun barrel that had an internal or integral suppressor and was designed for commando raids, taking out sentries, stuff like that. They were made in very small numbers and saw limited use during the Second World War. There were several attempts to make semi-automatic and automatic versions of the Lee-Enfield. Most, if not all of them, never made it past the prototype stage. The rifle was made basically around the world, from the UK to Australia, Canada, India, Pakistan, others. There's a pretty long list of that as well. As I said before, they're a popular hunting rifle, and if you go to any gun show or some gun shops here in Canada, you can still find them for sale, either in a sporterized version or unmolested version. Many people in Canada own a Lee-Enfield rifle. They're great rifles to have. I know I enjoy having mine. This particular model is a 1918 Lee-Enfield. It's a Lee-Enfield short magazine, SMLE, Mark III, without the magazine cutoff. And the way you can tell that it doesn't have the magazine cutoff is after the variant designation, so the SMLE Mark III, it'll have an asterisk after the 3 eyes for the 3. This rifle is an all numbers matching rifle except for the bolt. The bolt is a factory or military bolt replacement. I don't know when that would have been done. That might have been done after the Second World War or Korea, who knows. Who knows how many rounds have been fired through this rifle, and it's in great shape for being over 100 years old, being made in 1918. The sling that's attached to this rifle is not a First World War sling. It is a Second World War sling. I believe it's marked, 1943. It's a Mills Webb sling, which was a common sling to be used on the Second World War versions of the Lee-Enfield. Again, I don't know when that would have been attached to this rifle. It could have been done when it was reissued during the Second World War, or whoever had it before I did may have put that on there. I don't know. This rifle was made by Birmingham Small Arms, so it was made in England, but it found its way into Canadian service near the end of the First World War. There is a spot on it. You might be able to see it. There's like a little divot here, and that is for a unit pin. Each regiment would have a little mosaic pin kind of thing that would sit in there. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have it. I'm looking at getting one. I was hoping maybe to find one that was either a 209th or a 102nd Overseas Battalion one, because that's the regiments my great-grandfather served in during the First World War, so I think that would be kind of appropriate for this rifle. It features the flip-up, old-style rifle sight aperture, and that's designed for doing volley fire. It does have a bayonet, or I do have a bayonet for it. The bayonet is not numbers matching, unfortunately. The bayonet that I have for it is a Australian-made Lithgow sword bayonet. I believe it's a 1916. This here is the bayonet that goes with a Lee-Enfield. This is the one I have in the collection. I'll probably do a video on this sometime here in the future. Yeah, so this one's a 1916 Lithgow made Lee-Enfield sword bayonet. You might be actually able to see it on the side there. It's stamped Australia. I'll post some photos at the end of the video up close to the rifle and the bayonet on the rifle, so you can have a look at that. The rifle, it does have some dings and scratches on it, but if you're 100, excuse me, if you were 100 years old, you'd have a few dings and scratches too. I don't have a video of me shooting it. I intended to do that and have it play at the end of the video along with the photos, but I was busy this week and didn't get a chance to get to the range and get that made up for you guys. Perhaps I'll do that here in the future and do kind of a part 2 to this rifle, I guess. And that's the Lee-Enfield rifle. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. Thank you.